How did the project come about, first of all?
I think the starting point was I was chatting to a journalist called Peter Oborne, and we were talking about something else completely. And he then mentioned, I think Philip Green was in the news, so he mentioned that when he wrote as a journalist about Arcadia or Topshop or whatever, he would occasionally get phone calls in the middle of the night from Philip Green screaming down the phone, pointing out all the errors in his articles. And obviously there'd been a lot of publicity about Philip Green. It sort of seemed like that that would be a kind of funny type of character. It could be a kind of interesting and enjoyable kind of character to make a film about. And then sort of think about it in investigating kind of retail fashion. It just seemed like retail fashion is a great industry to look at inequality in general. So the film is a kind of satire, but it's not really against an individual. It's more about just looking at the grotesque inequality of wealth between the kind of men who own fashion brands and the women workers who make the clothes for those fashion brands.
You've worked with Steve multiple times now. How would you define your working relationship, and what did he bring to the role of Richard?
I first worked with Steve a long time ago on 24 Hour Party People. We've worked together a lot. I mean, basically, I just let him do what he wants to do, and I film it. It's as simple as that, really. It's one of the great things about working with Steve and with comedy people in general is that they're used to like writing their own material, generating their own characters. So like on this, we had Steve obviously, but we also had David Mitchell and Sarah Soleimani, Asim Chowdhury, Tim Keyes, a huge number of really great British kind of comedy actors and performers, and it's always fun to work with them because they just give you a lot.
I gather there was a lot of the film that was improvised. First of all, was there a particular bit of improvisation that you're especially pleased with?
I love improvised films. I do done quite a lot of stuff, both in the kind of comedy area with Steve and Rob Brydon, which is improvised, and also like in more kind of serious films, where people play kind of versions of themselves. I mean, this film, there was a certain amount of improvisation, but I have to say that because there's so many people, almost when you have a lot of people in a room, it's harder for them to improvise in a way because there's so many people doing things. You have to have a bit of shape and organisation. So I think, in some ways, the bits that were most improvised really were around, say, like the Syrian refugees, something like that, where they just did what they were kind of free to do what they wanted to do, and they were great to work with. They were fantastic to work with. But all the comedy people were great as well, and they did improvise some stuff, but perhaps not as much as on some things with them.
I'm really interested in how you shot the party scene. Like listening to reading about the actors in the production notes. They say they often didn't know. They had to sort of scan the crowd to see where you were with the camera. So how did you approach that?
Well, doing the party, like the whole spine of the film is that Rich McCready, he's throwing this big lavish party on Mykonos with Roman theme, inviting all his celebrity friends to come along to sort of show he's still king of the high street. And the problem in a way for us, the basic problem was that one of those parties in real life cost way more than our total film budget. So we were trying to having to do it as best we could. We were on Mykonos, we were in beautiful kind of hotels in Mykonos and so on, but our budget was kind of tiny. So and for various reasons, it meant the very first 2 days of our filming had to be the party. So so right at the beginning, we were doing the big party sequence. And it was a bit chaotic, but I kind of hope that chaos, the idea in the film is the party goes horribly wrong, so it felt like the chaos could be useful and could help us capture the spirit of what was supposed to be going on in the film.
Yeah, what was the hardest thing to get right overall?
Well, definitely the hardest thing is just to sort of get wealth on screen, unless you're very rich, to possess items that show you how wealthy you are is difficult. But the attraction for me, the challenge was like how to kind of film people, say like women workers in Sri Lanka. And billionaires on yachts in Monaco, and somehow kind of compress those two different worlds into the same film. So so we keep switching backwards and forwards from Mykonos to Britain to Monaco to Sri Lanka, and for me it's the fun is to try and push those worlds together, because in reality, the billionaire on his yacht in Monaco has all that money because he's got that money from the clothes that those women people have worked. So in reality, there was a really close connection between those women and that guy. But obviously, you tend to forget about that in the real world, and they seem to live in totally different worlds. And so it was the challenge and the fun was to try and push them together.
Did you cut anything out that you were sorry to lose?
There's always like lots of stuff. There was lots of detailed stuff that was was fun, and there were some elements of the film that that I wanted to have in that we didn't keep in. And then there was strands of the film we cut out, but in the end it's like it's a sort of obviously you keep the bit you think is best.
I particularly enjoyed the lion. Was that entirely CGI, or did you have to need a good lion wrangler?
The lion is based on a real lion. I mean, to us, we did a film with Steve a few years ago about Paul Raymond, and there was a line in that. So with that, we filmed the line in that film. So Paul Raymond, who was sort of like famous for sort of, magazines and so on, in the very early days, he had a kind of show where he had semi-naked women and a lion in a cage in a theatre, and his wife was one of the women. Anna Field was playing his wife. So we had to sort of try and recreate in the Hackney Empire this kind of stage show. So there, on that one, we filmed the lion, and then sort of kind of combined that lion with the stage show, because we weren't allowed to bring a lion into the Hackney Empire and have it with the women. So in this case, we sort of based it on that lion, but in fact it is mainly CGI.
And finally, what do you hope people take away from the film?
The idea is, that the idea was like to find something that's funny and entertaining, but keeps bringing you up against the fact that in the same world, connected very closely through this kind of economic relationship of one brand, say like Topshop or Zara or H&M, one brand. At the top of that brand, you have a guy like Amancio Ortega, who owns Zara, who's worth $60 billion. So that $60 billion is made from the clothes that he sells. And the women who make the clothes that he sells, if they're working in Bangladesh, they're getting about $3 a day. They're working in Sri Lanka, where we filmed, about £4 a day. And it's like, I hope people, when they see that, just think, well, that's wrong, surely. Surely we don't want to live in that world. Surely we don't want, when we go to the high street, to feel like we're buying the clothes that are made by the women getting paid so little. And hopefully you want to change it.